Good morning, everybody. My name's Ian, and welcome to the tutorial on an introduction to Capture the Flag by Rob Kenefeck. Now, Rob tells me he is a principal consultant with a new organisation called Control Plane, which is into cloud native security. And he likes to talk about how security is fundamental to DevOps. Security is fundamental to all Linux people, isn't it? I hope. He's been automating toil in Linux for more than 20 years. He's almost as old as me in it. So, look, please make welcome Rob Kenefeck, and we're going to learn about Capture the Flag. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Now, today, the workshop today is about how to operate and run in a CTF. You're not going to get to use your laptops too much, but what I'm trying to get out of it is a view of numbers for tomorrow. Tomorrow's the big event, so we'll be running the full Capture the Flag tomorrow. But for some people, this will be the first time that you've seen a Capture the Flag. There's only 7 of you in the room, so by show of hands, who's actually done a Capture the Flag before? 3, 4, cool. Which is good, because you'll understand what I'm talking about a little bit, hopefully, and tell me if I'm going wrong. I've run these a few times across Australia, and the company that I work for, Control Plane, has run them at pretty much every KubeCon since 2018. I think it was the first time we did it. KubeCon's the big Kubernetes conference. The CNCF came out with a new security conference. We ran it at that as well. So we've got a lot of experience in running Capture the Flag on Kubernetes. And every year we come out with some new scenarios. We'll pick one of our back catalogue of scenarios and I'll walk you through it today. So I'll show you how I approach Capture the Flag in a Kubernetes way, which will be slightly different to what you might be used to if you're a Capture the Flag expert in hacking websites and doing everything else. Control Plane is a consultancy focused on cloud native. Kubernetes is the kind of predominant thing in cloud native, but it's not the only thing. And what we found is that people running pen tests on Kubernetes infrastructure typically miss the lateral movement that you can get within a cluster. They're very good at coming in through the applications that are exposed to the internet, but once they're in, they don't know where they're going after that and how they move laterally. We focus with the CTF more about that lateral movement. Now, I do have slides, but I basically just talked it through anyway. That's me. I've written some of our scenarios. I typically tailor my scenarios to something that's going on. So the last scenarios I wrote were all to do with the OWASP top 10 as a great way of showcasing the things that the top 10 has identified about Kubernetes security. And I've started working on some new AI ones as well. Now, all of our scenarios, all of our CTF is based on this character, Captain Hashjack, who is the main character in the book that our CEO wrote about hacking Kubernetes, which is available, and I've got a link if you want to download the first half of the book as an ebook, because it takes you through how an attacker would attack your Kubernetes cluster and shows you how to defend it. Kubernetes is a bit strange. How many people are familiar with Kubernetes? 1, 2, cool. You don't have to have a huge amount of experience with Kubernetes to run the CTF today, but it is all based on Kubernetes. So you need to understand a little bit about it. And so I like to bring up the attack surface. It's different, as I said, it's different to another kind of application. The workload, which is where your web browser will point to, has actually got a number of different areas that it can go to, whether it's the process of the applications that are running, whether it's the runtime, network underlying, or whether it's to do with the way that the Docker container has been deployed and whether you've over-provisioned that container, giving it different sysadmin capabilities that it shouldn't necessarily have. The file system as well is another key place where we find lots of compromises, and things typically when you're enumerating away from the initial exposure, it's the file system that people get to that gives them the most access. That's the wrong one. So let's switch pages. That's the right one. So the way that we run our capture the flags is we bring up a page. This is the page that we'll be using tomorrow. And what I've done is I've included on the HackMD page everything that you might need to know. So it shows the HackMD page URL. We used to put a QR code on. I don't find that works very well when you're trying to get to it from a laptop. But also a link to our CTFD account. So we've got a CTFD page, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second, that allows you to log in and start your flag capturing journey. Now what I'm hoping for is that you'll all come to the CTF tomorrow, or at least participate. You don't necessarily need to be here the full 4 hours. You can drop in and out as you need to, and tackle the events as you want. But for the final 1 hour of the session tomorrow, I'll do a walkthrough about how I solve it and the approach that I take when I'm doing these, in much the same way as I'll do a walkthrough this morning, about how I'm going to solve a different scenario to show you what it looks like. So if you can create a CTFD account and then start capturing the test flag. The test flag's really easy, and again, I'm going to demonstrate it in a second. So let's start that now. Yeah, feel free. As long as at some point today you've registered an account, so I know how many Kubernetes clusters to spin up. My fun activities tonight after the penguin dinner will be looking at how many people have registered, trying to estimate how many people might turn up tomorrow in addition to that, and then spinning up all of the infrastructure required to host it. Each of you will get your own cluster for the scenarios that you're operating. So, and again, I'll kind of show you that, how you download the credentials to that cluster and land in that cluster and what it looks like. So yeah, feel free to follow along. I'm not going to think you're scrolling Facebook or whatever people do in lectures at the moment. And if there is anyone online, the URL that you need to is there. So controlplane-eo2025.ctfd.io. So on the register button at the top, I'll put a name. It doesn't have to be a real email. You're never going to use it for anything. So if you want to use a throwaway email in there, use a throwaway email. As long as you're able to log back into this, you won't need the email for anything. I'm not doing this so that we can capture all of your details. It's just so that you can access the CTFD page. At the end of it, we'll use the username that you've put in to show a leaderboard and see who's won. I will have some swag with me tomorrow. I'll have some stickers and some cards and some t-shirts. So just a few items of swag for anyone who comes up top on the board. You get first pick at it. But what we've done is we've put in this test flag as a way of demonstrating how, when you find a flag within the CTF environment, this is where you want to go to log that flag and gain the points from it. So the challenge that we've listed there is just entering the flag. And the format that you can see of the flag is flag_CTF, and then some curly brackets and some text. And what we're looking for when you enter the flag is the whole subsection of it. So it'll always be in this format, normally with flag_CTF, although some authors put in slightly different terms there. So it might be flag and then a number, so you know which flag you're entering to get the right number of points for it. So you enter it in the box, click submit, it tells you you're correct, and then it goes green. Now, when I launch the CTF tomorrow morning, there'll be a lot more on here, as long as you've done the first test flag. If you haven't done the test flag, you won't see any of the others. All right, so I've done my test flag, and then it's telling me to download the credentials for the cluster. Now I've got a list of different attendees. Based on the registrations on CTFD tonight, this list will get populated, and there'll be a little link on the side of it that takes you directly to your credential pack. Because I haven't set the list up, and there's only one credential pack available, it's all here. Finding the right folder to bring up and show you so you don't accidentally share anything else. All right, so we've got the, and obviously I tested this earlier, so when I downloaded it, it's added all the extra bits onto it. So we don't need a Google Drive link anymore. We've pulled down the credential pack, which is just a tar bundle. Now I know it's funny to have a security person say, just go to a random Google Drive folder and download a tar file and extract it. I'm expecting you'll, if you're worried about it, be operating in a sandbox anyway. There's only so many ways that we can get credentials to you, and stuffing it in a tar file is probably the easiest. Now this is where it's going to get fun, because let's see if I can zoom the text in a bit. Is it Shift plus, thanks. Yeah. Can you tell me when you can see it clearly from the back or online? Is it legible yet? Yeah, excellent. All right. So we'll copy and paste, because trying to type in the wrong way around is not ideal. Thanks, demo gods. Come on. Looks like I'm connected, but we're not getting a link yet. Okay. All right, so it's definitely unpacked it. We've got all our files there. It should be all formatted correctly. But it's not. It's not. Just make sure it's not the conference Wi-Fi. I'm just going to double check that everything is coming up properly. All right, we do have one failing system, so I might just grab some new credentials. The demo gods always look poorly on you. I suspect I may have picked up a credential for one of the instances that's failed, so what we should see in a second is that there are more credential packs now.
So, do we have access to this Google Drive now? I'm sorry, how do we get there?
So on the HackMD page, there's a link. Yeah, it's not the easiest to.
And I'm getting a 403.
Yeah, same. 403.
For the Google Drive link.
No,
Interesting. Okay. Has anyone been able to access the page? Yeah, you shouldn't have to. It should be. Yeah. Everyone.
There we go.
There you go.
Alright, try again, I guess. Yep, got it. Nice. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try again with number 2. Okay. We should be able to try this again now. There we go. It was exactly that. So, I'm going to exit out and come back into it with without the -b. Is that still easy to read for everyone? And online as well? Excellent. So we've come into what is a container. And you'll find with most of our CTF environments, we'll drop you into a container that's got SSH permissions. We've provided a bit of information as part of the welcome message that you get. And it suggests what you might want to do next. But the way that I always approach this is I start looking at what's locally available to me. Certainly can. Better? Cool. Now, I kind of run through my little list, even though I'm already in the root directory. By running through and listing out what the file system looks like, and remember I showed you what the kind of pod attack vector was. The file system is one of the easiest ways to break out, and so seeing what's available to you is like a really key first step. In this instance, there isn't really anything there. There's a couple of standard files, there's a profile, there's a bash RC, we might be able to find some interesting things in those. But there's nothing that's really standing out as being important. So the next thing, especially when we're in Kubernetes, is the Kubernetes command kubectl auth cani list. Now, kubectl by default will always use your current namespace, which is probably going to be the default namespace. And you can run this command across any namespace that you have access in. And what it does is it tells you what permissions you've got within the Kubernetes cluster. Now, system administrators, I find, don't tend to use this as much as they probably should, mainly because they always think they've got full admin permissions anyway. But we know the best practice is to make sure that everyone has the minimum required level of permissions, and so being able to check whether you can do something or not do something, this is a really useful command to do that with. And just to talk through what I can see in here, and I'm going to move out of the way so I don't crick my neck. So we're talking about service accounts, token. We've got the create ability on that. So we can create service account tokens. With pod exec, pod logs, and pods, we've got pretty much full permissions, get list and create. Nodes, we've got permission to list the nodes. Then you've got a few kind of non-resource URLs. I've got some commands and I've put them into that hackmd page that strips out some of that fluff because it's really not necessary to see. You'll always get those certain levels of permission and they don't really help you with anything. So you're able to hit the API endpoints and check certain things. We can also see down here that we've got some get permissions on service accounts and services, which you don't actually have. So really, we're focused up here on these things that we've got here. Pods is a great place to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at what pods are running. And again, I'm not going crazy. I'm not looking into other namespaces at the moment. I'm just looking at where I've landed and what's available to me where I've landed. So we can see 3 pods that are there. One of them should look familiar because it's the same name as what we're already in. So entry point deployment and entry point deployments. We've landed in entry point deployment. There are 2 other pods available to us. One of them says it's for production, the other one says it's for dev. And we've already seen that we had exec and log permissions on this. So if we had a look at the dev pod first, SDS. This starts to give us a bit of information about what's going to go on in this scenario. So we can see in the scenario, we're probably going to be doing something with Vault because the logs have told us that Vault is logged in, and we can see that there's a Vault token written in plain text. So already we're seeing problems and flaws in this system. Maybe it's just because it's a dev environment that they're outputting that. Let's check it. No, it's not just the dev environment. So what we're seeing here is a poorly constructed container that's outputting tokens and giving us information about what is running on the system, all just by having access to look at the logs of the container. There might be a valid reason for us to have log view on that container, but probably not. There's definitely no reason for us to have exec on both of those pods, but let's give it a try. Let's just go in and see what's happening in the system. Now, some of the fastest CTF players that I've watched do our CTFs have pre-canned scripts that will go through and just hit some of these things up. I've got a few of them for my own uses, but the more you do it, the more you investigate a system. And I'm going through it and I'm typing everything out in full. It's a much slower way of kind of progressing through a Kubernetes system. What do I want to do? I want to exec. I want a terminal. And I probably just want to run bash. Cool. We're still root. So again, it's important to understand what user we're running as. And we've landed in an app folder. So again, I go through my standard process, and suddenly you can see there's an index.html. Let's have a look at that. Now, containers are not always going to have the tools that you need in them. But as we all know with Linux, there's so many different ways of doing the same thing that just because less isn't available, and I always go to less. I don't know why I persist in trying less when I know it's always one of the tools that's not there. But more happily gives me the information. So I can see, again, we're talking about a secret path. And for some reason, there's an HTML file that's there with a secret. It's not really giving us a flag, though. And so while it looks like this is a really important piece of the puzzle, it's not giving us a flag to use. And so right now, for the purpose of the CTF, it's not important. But if I was a malicious hacker coming in, seeing that there's an HTML file here that's presenting a web page of some description, this might be a way of me exfiltrating some information that I can get to on the system. So it's always worth thinking about what's in your containers and what they're doing. We'll keep moving through my little process. So obviously we're in the app, and we can see there's a Vault token. So we can have a look at what the Vault token looks like, but at this stage, I'm not sure what we're going to get because we can see that Vault is already logged in. We saw that from the log files. We don't need to do Vault login. So we could just have a look at what Vault is telling us. Vault. This is where I have to try and remember my Vault commands now. Vault best secrets. That's KV. No. So we don't have access to list secrets. And this is going to tell me I haven't got enough arguments. So at this stage, I can go and have a look at what the Vault command lines are. For my sake, I'm just going to bring up my cheat sheet. I know what I've done. The secrets endpoint isn't the one we're looking for, it's the secret endpoint. And this actually gives us what I was hoping to see. Right? So we can see the prod key, which we've already found as part of that index HTML. We've got a dev key. I suspect if we went into the dev container, that would have the same thing. And we can see flag, flag2, and an SSH key. Now, SSH keys are great. If you find an SSH key in a system, it's going to provide you access to somewhere else. So we'll take these in sequence because what I'd be doing is looking for flags that I can then add into the CTFD. So let's see if we can get flag and flag2. Excellent.
Rob, how did you get the shell in the container? What command did you execute? Kubectl or something?
kubectl exec.
Yep.
And then I did an interactive, so -it,
Dash IT.
then the pod name, and then --bash.
That's what it's missing.
Cool. So I can see the flag, and you can see the format that the flag takes. So what we'd do from here is we'd then go and start applying that back to our dashboard. All right. So the scenario that we're doing is daylight robbery. Daylight robbery has 3 flags. We found the first one, flag. You can also see sometimes we include hints, and the hints will take away from your total points. So when you get a flag, you get points. When you use a hint to try and understand how to get to the next flag, you're going to lose some points. So if we come back to here, we'll capture, again, as awkward as this is, it's probably easier than trying to type. Cool, I got it correct. Now, if I just wanted to play around and put the same flag in, it's going to come back and tell me I'm incorrect. So you can't just blast your way through thinking you can throw it all in there. We now need to go and find the second flag. But fortunately, we could see that all of the keys that we might need were there. Unfortunately, there is some level of RBAC on this. So with what we've got, we can't access flag 2. What about the SSH key? Can we get the SSH key? No. So at this point, and again, one of the tips for approaching a CTF, a scenario author wants you to go in a particular way. So our job as an author is to not just create a system that is hackable, but it's to create a system that is hackable that guides you along a path so that you can capture the flags and solve the problem. The fact that we've already captured a flag here and we're now getting permission denied tells me we've probably reached the end of the pathway that the author wanted us to follow in this. And so we need to go back and start looking at a different mechanism. And adversaries do this frequently. They'll look at all of the permissions that you've got, all the access controls you've got within the Kubernetes cluster, and they'll start progressively working their way through and seeing how far they can take each of them. That's exactly what we're going to do. We've exec'd into this pod, so we're going to come back out. I don't need to be in there. And we'll have a look again. Let's just check first. We already know we've got other permissions in the default namespace, but are there other namespaces that we can get? And actually, we kind of get a bit more information about what's going on from an error message. The error message doesn't just tell us, no, you can't do this, but it also starts telling you what service account we're logged into the system with, which I always find to be a fairly useful piece of information because it helps you work your way through if there are other service accounts. And actually, we saw that there was another service account that we could get. So we saw that we can create tokens for other service accounts, and we saw that we can list service accounts. Now, I don't think we can actually list service accounts. Sometimes you get permissions that are a bit of a red herring. Which tells me there's probably a policy in place that's preventing us from doing that. And I forgot to show you something. Another thing that happens frequently is you might get to the end of a step and think you can back all the way out. You saw me come out of this container and I went, actually, there's other things that I could look at in this container. I only got as far as looking in the root directory. But what else is there? And immediately I see a startup folder. And so we can have a look further into what might be in the startup folder. And the startup folder points us to an entry point script. And again, we don't have less, but we do have more. And we can see the way that it's logging into Vault is listed in the startup script. That gives us a really good clue as to what we need to do if we want to do more with what's available. And it's outputting environment keys into the index HTML. So now we know where that came from, and we can see that Python's running an HTTP server, so it is being shared as well. It's a great way of exfiltrating information. But with this, we can see that we're using a role. So the first thing I see when I see role is that actually, what are the other roles that are available? And this is where your knowledge of HashiCorp Vault might come into play. Vault list. So Vault list auth Kubernetes role. So auth Kubernetes is a provider within Vault, a secret provider. And we could see that it was already using a role. So it told me that I could probably look for other roles. And the other role we can see app, which is probably what we were using before, but we'll check it anyway, and read all the things. There. So what we'll do now, so instead of just listing it, I want to get it. Feel free to correct my typos if you see them before I do. We thought we were using app. So I can list it, read it. All right, so we can see app is exactly what we thought. It was using the default service account. We saw from trying to get the namespace that that was also using the default service account. So app is tied to the default service account. So let's see what the other role was doing. All right, so read all the things is using a name called Vault Admin. So we can probably create a token for Vault Admin because we saw with auth CanI that we can create tokens for service accounts. So let's see if we can do that and then what permissions that gives us. So even from the account that we're in, we can still do service account token create. So kubectl. The role was read all the things. The service account that it was probably using was Vault Admin. There we go. So I was able to create a token for a service account, even though we couldn't check that that was the right service account. And probably the easiest thing for me to do is just to export that into a variable. The old typos again. Check that was successful. Cool, that's the same structure. Whether it's the same token, it probably isn't. We probably created extra tokens and just left them lying around. So we're just going to use this same command that was being used before. It's a service running on the cluster. but if it was a different endpoint, you'd probably want to know what the endpoint is to log into it. So we'll take all of that. We'll run it ourselves. We're not going to use a token stored in a file. Again, I could have output that to a file and then read it from the file. I try and stay in memory as best possible. And we know that the role that we needed to use, because I got it wrong before, was all the things. Read all the things. So what this should do is change the permissions. Success, we're logged in, it's dumped out the token that we're using. We can now see that we're using read all the things. So if we go back to our vault commands that didn't work, we'll see if they now do work. Excellent. We've now got flag 2. So we can hop that.
Quick question, how
Yep.
do you know which flag is which? So we've got day of robbery 1, 2, and 3. And then the flag says flag CTF opening out sort of thing. How do we know which flag to actually input this into?
So the file name or the secret name is the thing that was giving us the clues there. So when I read the first vault secret, that was flag. The second one that I read was flag 2, and then there's an SSH key. So sometimes you go through things in a slightly different sequence. So I'll drop in.
There should be a hint in how you got the flag that says which.
Yeah, there'll be something that ties you into. Like if it was really easy, you're probably not going to be getting heaps of points for it. Or you can just try all of them. That's also a valid approach. But most authors will try and put some link. They'll try and make it possible for you to know, even if it's not necessarily easy.
If you're not sure, there's no penalty for putting the wrong flag in.
No.
So you can just do a linear search. You've got a flag, you don't know which one to
Yeah.
plug into.
So especially when I'm creating these flags, I'll try and make it a long enough string that it's difficult to just guess, but also within a theme. So it's just a different way of, different authors put their own flair into it. All right, so we've got 2 flags. We've got the SSH key, which we know is a potential. So we're going to see if we can get the SSH key now. Great. So we can see the SSH key in Vault comprises of a key and a value. So the key is what looks like an SSH key and a username for backup. So actually, we can probably just use a bit of, and I'm going to copy and paste this because I've got it written down, so I might as well make the most of it rather than trying to step through everything. And then I'll talk through what the steps are. So vault kv get mount secret. It's just the way that we were looking at those secrets. So I was listing and reading them. But we're going to output it into a JSON string. Then we're going to pass it for the key part that we were looking for based on what we saw in there. And then we'll base64 decrypt it so that we can use it as an SSH key. Cool, we've done that. So now we should be able to do SSH-i, but where are we going to go to? We know what our key is. We know what the username is that the key is going to use, but we don't know where we're SSHing to. And again, this is where you come back to a author is likely to have given you the permissions to find the information that you need somehow, somewhere. And we had this thing that I pointed out at the start of nodes, and we can get nodes. So actually, we can probably just do a wide view of the nodes that are available, and then we'll pick one of the IP addresses. Now, it's always good to jump to the master straight away, so let's see if we can get master. I think we said it was backup at. Do I want to continue? Yes, I do. So there's two things. So either the master node isn't allowing us in, or the username that I used is incorrect. The username is correct, so we move on to the next one in the list. Shame, we can't get our master access. Maybe we can get our master access. Did anyone notice what I did when we created that SSH key? Go on. Yeah, exactly. It took me 2 attempts before I go, hang on, what do I need to check again? Oh yeah, permissions. So we know that an SSH key is a secure thing. And it does actually tell us as well. If I was paying more attention to it, it's telling us that there's bad permissions. So fingers crossed. Now we can just do it. Boom, we're in. So we're into node 1. That's fine, it's not the master node, but the process starts all over again. So basically, we start again with what is available inside where we've landed. Cool, we don't have permission to look at root. We can see a whole heap of things in slash. There's nothing really in our profile. This is where you have to start getting a little bit deeper and trying to think about where things might get, where you might be able to get permissions of something on a Linux node. I also check mount, so let's have a look at mount and media. Oh, you're absolutely right, I am. Cool, SSH key is still there. Hopefully I've got the right IP address and copy paste history. Yep, all right. What are we looking at? Mount and media. Anyone else got any suggestions as to where we might look? Let's have a look. So it was in the home directory.ssh, wasn't it? Yeah, so we've got the authorized keys there. Always worth checking though, because there might be something else to get elsewhere. So we can. Cool. So we've got an SSH key to something, to somewhere. I know who this is. This is the author of the scenario. So I know because I know where the key is that this isn't a thing, but we like to drop other red herrings in. So you might follow this and try and hop somewhere and go somewhere else. Understanding other users on the system can also going to give you a lot of insight. Just to see what else might be going on, what they've taken out. So syslog's running, SSH is running, Pollinate's running, players there. Oh look, there's a flag as well. Understanding what other services are running on a system is also useful, which is why the flag has been dropped in here. And as I said, I know it's there, so I don't go looking too much deeper in other places. But in a CTF land, there'll be lots of red herrings. There'll be lots of potential for you to navigate down and spread your way through a system and find access. Most of the CTFs that we run, we don't have any monitoring or logging on top of what you do. So I do encourage you to play and explore, but do so in a fairly responsible way. So don't try and blow out our AWS account with all of these compute instances on. If you do find something and you've got permissions to do something that you don't think you should, please let me know, just because I can take it back to Ian and go, ha, we found a flaw. Some of us authors are like that. We like to play off each other a little bit, because it's just as important when we're authoring a scenario like this. We're not just authoring it for people to be able to find things and hack things, but to lock it down in other ways so that the only way that you can hack something is the way that we've planned for you to do it. That way you're always going to end up with a flag if you've done the right activity, or you're going to find a red herring and we'll go, ha, we got you. Right, those are the things that we try to do when we're putting these in. Let's add our flag in. In here, daylight 3. And again, this is one's a process of elimination. Like, I saw flag and I saw flag 2, so I kind of could process those, would be daylight robbery 1 and daylight robbery 2. It's not necessary that that's the case, but we know when we submit it, if it goes green, we've got it right, otherwise we're looking for something else. Hopefully that's given you a good view of what we're looking for in a CTF, how we write a CTF. It's given you a bit of an insight into it, and also giving you the opportunity to hopefully register on the CTFD page. If you are going to come tomorrow, please register today so that I can get the right number of servers up. I will have extras anyway, but it's better. I don't want to be spinning up infrastructure that then just sits there and is idle, and I'll do a bit of a cleanup on the ones that are there that are not working, so I'll probably test them a few bits tonight as well. Does anyone have any questions? Anything that I walked through that didn't make sense or you wanted to know more about? Yeah.
In this one we used kubectl and Vault.
Yep.
Are there other similar programs that we would need to know about to progress?
kubectl is one that you'll probably use all the time. So anyone using Kubernetes, there's not much of a user interface to Kubernetes. So you're likely to be using kubectl to interact with it in some way. I picked a scenario to demonstrate that wasn't one I'm going to use tomorrow. I'm not going to give too much away about what tomorrow's scenario is, but understanding basic Linux tools. I've used one of our more simple scenarios rather than our complex ones, so you shouldn't need to know anything too egregiously difficult. I was almost not going to demo with Vault because I was like, oh, people don't know Vault, but because I'm demoing it, I think it makes more sense. Tomorrow you should just be able to do it based on basic Linux commands and kubectl. But it's the kubectl commands that give you the most power. So that kubectl auth cani is something I use very frequently, both authoring and running these, but also when I'm investigating systems and assessing systems. So my role as a principal consultant is I get to go and talk to lots of different companies about what they're doing with Kubernetes, and then run assessments on their maturity level and what they're DevOps practices are and how they might improve them and make them more secure. And so being able to come in and have a look at some of the user accounts that they've got and what access those user accounts have got. So I use auth CanI a lot. Most people who just interact with the Kubernetes cluster through CI probably don't touch it. But there's other commands with kubectl that you might need to use. So attaching to containers or execing into containers, looking at the logs of containers, all kind of sysadmin stuff for kubectl. Cool. I don't know where we did on. Oh, go for it.
What distribution of Kubernetes are you using for this? EKS?
So I think, so what we've done is we've spun up EC2 instances and then we've kubadmin installed Kubernetes on top of that. So we're using 131 at the moment, I think, what I saw yesterday. It's just a fairly bare kube. And depending on the scenarios that get deployed, so basically what we do in the background of this is we've got all sorts of scripts ready to spin up the Kubernetes clusters. We've built out the scenarios in Ansible so that we know that we can reproduce it every time when we want to. And then it will be the same environment that attendees and participants can jump into. We also use this software when we run training courses for large organizations. So it's something that if you're interested in getting more into at work, then we have an option where you can run it, and every month or 2 months we produce a new scenario that people can try and hack on. But yeah, it's all EC2 instances, kubadmined out, so that we can very strictly control what Kubernetes plugins or add-ons we might want to add, what other things on the file system we might need to have there, and just generally control what's going on with it. So I'm going to bring it back to our main page and I'll just leave it there for anyone to have a look at. If I can find the tab that was displaying. So yeah, the important link for today is this creating a CTFD account so that I can populate the list. And when you come tomorrow, the first 3 hours will be an opportunity for you to sit, ask questions. I can help in a very general way. I have put in some useful commands, some helpful commands. I said when I do namespace capturing or when I do an auth CanI, I try and shrink it down a little bit so I'm not overwhelmed with the information that's there. I might show you what that looks like. Just what we've got a little bit more time. I haven't been told that we need to stop yet, so I might as well keep blathering at you. Back up node 1. I know that we can't get to any other namespaces with this account, but it's just using simple Linux commands to shrink down, narrow down what you see so that it's easier to start working through. I frequently drop namespace out because I'm focusing on a namespace at a time, so that's why I've removed anything that starts with namespace. And I'm removing any of the kind of self components or the blanks, so that really only get a list of the core things that I'm probably going to look at. 99% of the time that's enough. But the idea is that it's there on the page as a helper, and if I have to help enough people with a particular thing, I'll probably put the command in there. And we might be using a different scenario tomorrow, so that will get updated. But yeah, hopefully that's been interesting. And we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone.